of maybe things we knew but had forgotten the importance of, if I can say it that way. Who knew a disconnect, a break in one little pipe, okay, maybe it wasn't little, could have such an impact, right? Wow. Boy, the stock of the people who work in the waterworks and pipe laying business went up, in my book, big time this past week. I'm very, very grateful for those folks. And again, you know, it just made me think. I had a lot of opportunity to think as I was boiling water and cleaning up, flushing out pipes, whatever else. It really prompted me to think, you know, the connection that pipe brought about, that it enabled, the connection of a water treatment, water filtering plant, and the benefit thousands receive. Huge, huge connection. And the flip side of that, as we were experiencing, what happens when that connection is broken? So it's not only remembering the importance or acknowledging the significance of a break in a connection. It's an acknowledgement of what happens when there's a break in a vital connection, right? Again, we all know water, well, you can't make it without water. You can only drink so many other beverages for so long, and you need water. Not to mention the inconvenience, the hassle, all those kinds of things, right? How much I looked forward to drinking what I honestly rarely ever think of reaching for. I'm just one of those guys. I'm just admitting it right up front. I rarely think, hey, I'd like a glass of water. There are a lot of other things I enjoy drinking. Water's usually not the thing. I don't know. Certain water I really like. Generally, that's not what I'm interested in reaching for. But by Friday, man, I was looking for a good cold glass of clean, safe-to-drink water. And I was pulling for those guys. There is another vital connection, maybe you've picked up on it, where I'm headed this morning. There's another connection that is vital for us to keep. And I want to talk a little bit about that, but I think maybe the way to enter into that would be to read you a story or two, connected stories from the Bible this morning, from God's Word. So I am in the Gospel of John, if you want to turn with me. And I invite those of you who are with us by video today to do the same. By the way, let me just mention to you that there are a lot of folks that join us by way of video. I don't know if you knew that or not, but there are a tremendous number of people that join us by way of video. As a matter of fact, if the stats I have are correct, once every 3 minutes, somebody is joining us by way of video. That's pretty amazing. So we thank God for that opportunity to be connected with a larger group than just those of us who gather here. And thanks to those of you who helped make that possible. So we're in the Gospel of John, and this morning, we are in chapter 21. This is the very end of the Gospel of John. Some say this was not original to the Gospel, that it was added on a little bit later. I don't know the answer to that, but I know this. As I read through the Gospels, what we have in front of us makes a lot of sense to me in the way it's put together. It explains to me a lot of connections, and we're talking about connections this morning. And so I want to start with this, and I want you to listen. Just listen to this story. I'm reading out of the New Living Translation if you want to follow along. Again, John chapter 21. Later, I got to stop there. Wow, didn't get very far. Later, anytime you're reading and you get, a passage or a story that starts with therefore or later or then, it obviously tells you that there's a connection to something that came before it. And that's what's happening here. Later, meaning something significant has just happened, and then later on, this story. Later, Jesus appeared again to the disciples beside the Sea of Galilee. This is how it happened. Several of the disciples were there. Simon Peter, Thomas, who was nicknamed the twin, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two other disciples. The sons of Zebedee, that's James and John. That's Zebedee is their father, and so that's what they're referred to. Anyway, Simon Peter said to the group, "I'm going fishing." "We'll come too," they all said. So they went out in the boat, but they caught nothing all night. Sound familiar? If you've been here the last several weeks, maybe it rings true to you, or maybe it just reminds you of another story. I'll continue. At dawn, Jesus was standing on the beach, but the disciples couldn't see who he was. He called out, "Fellows, have you caught any fish?" "No," they replied. Then he said, "Throw out your net on the right-hand side of the boat, and you'll get some." So they did, and they couldn't haul in the net because there were so many fish in it. Now, I know some of you were here when I talked about this story before. I remember distinctly some of you being here. And if you're wondering right now, man, this sounds very familiar. It's a little different, but it sounds like a really familiar story. Then let's draw the connections. Where else have we heard a story about the disciples fishing and not catching anything, even though they'd been fishing all night long, which was the prime time to fish, right? If you know anything about that area. Do you remember? Do you remember where we were reading this story? Do you remember when it took place in kind of the story of the disciples with Jesus? Somebody's been taking notes. That's right, Jay. Gospel of Luke, chapter 5. Now, you guys read, whether you read the Bible or you read anything else, you know something about stories, right? We got a beginning of the story, we got an end of the story. A lot of times in the way stories are written, it's particularly important to pay attention to what happens at the beginning and the end. Luke, starting out his gospel, tells a story about the disciples being out fishing, some of them anyway, and it's in Luke's gospel, chapter 5. And we read that. I preached on it several weeks ago. And in that story, you may remember, the disciples had been out fishing all night long. Experienced disciples had caught nothing. Jesus suggested, he asked them, "Hey, would you take us out deeper again? Let's go fishing. And this time I want you to put your nets back in the water." "Okay, Lord, we've been doing this all night long." He didn't call him Lord at the time, he called him Master. But nevertheless, he said, "We've been doing this all night long, but because you've asked me to do this," "Yes," Peter said, "I'll take the boat out and we'll do this." When they let down the nets, a huge catch occurred. And Peter was awestruck, not to mention the other guys, but he was awestruck not only the fact that he had not caught anything and he was experienced, but the fact that they caught such an overwhelming 2 boatloads of fish just at the connection, just at the command of Jesus. Got ahead of myself. Just at the command of Jesus. It was almost like there was a connection between Jesus and the fish. He knew something, right? And right afterwards, after Peter falls on his knees and acknowledging who he is in the presence of, even if he didn't fully understand, he's in the presence of somebody amazing, and he says, "Lord, go away from me. I don't deserve to be near you. I am a sinner." I'm paraphrasing. But you get the idea. You get the gist of how stunned he was, how amazed he was, and I can only imagine the thoughts going through his mind. This is what we talked about a couple of weeks ago. The ideas that he must have been wrestling with. What in the world is possible? And when Jesus said, "Follow me," Peter and the other disciples dropped what they were doing and they took off. You can imagine, maybe, what they were imagining. Look at the possibilities. What is going to happen next? Well, a whole lot happened next. And if you know much about the story of Jesus and his disciples, you know that Man, a lot happened. They went through a lot of different experiences, ups and downs, amazing things they saw, terrifying things they experienced, frightening news they received, joyful hope that they had, all kinds of things happening. So then when you get to the end of the story, what would you expect? Well, if you know the story, again, you know that not only did they experience some terrifying things, Jesus went through the ultimate, right? Jesus was killed because of who he claimed to be and what he claimed he was doing. Imagine being a disciple who had just left everything and followed and been through all these crazy experiences and having such hope and dreams only to have them shattered. And even though in the Gospel of John, just before this story, Jesus had begun to appear again. In fact, the recording in the Gospels is that he had come to life again. After being dead, he had actually been dead, not just resuscitated, dead, and was resurrected. Amazing. And he's appearing to guys who, at no fault of their own, at least I'm not in a position to fault them, they were not prepared for what they experienced. They weren't really sure. Some of them really doubted, is this real? Could this be true? Even though the prophecies, even though the stories of old had told them this was going to happen, even though their family history had said, this is what we are part of, this is what we look forward to, it just doesn't happen. And so as excited as they were, as devastated as they had been, as confused as they were, they had to have been wondering all kinds of things. And in the midst of wondering and being overwhelmed with all that you're trying to sort out, what do we often do? What do you do? What do you do when you're going through life and you've just had a ton of things happen? We tend to speak of being overwhelmed, whether it's stuff at work, things happening in your life, maybe family issues, and you're just totally overwhelmed. It's more than you know what to do with. You can't really even figure it all out and explain it. What do? We just kind of take a break from life, right? Take a couple of weeks off, sit around, do you think about it, try to figure it out? Dre's shaking his head no. Dre's tracking with me. Thank you, Dre. Right? Who does that? Who has time to do that? Nobody. What do you do instead? You go back to work. You keep doing what you've been doing. The bills don't stop. The family responsibilities don't stop. You got to keep moving. So in this story, Peter says, hey guys, I'm going fishing. Because Peter was a fisherman. And the other guys with him say, hey, we'll go too. And it's amazing. They get out there and they're fishing, and all night long they catch nothing. And then all of a sudden, somebody's asking them a question. Now, I get that they didn't recognize him. They're out on the shore. Good grief, man, I'm old enough. I got, maybe you don't see it from where you're sitting, because I don't have lines in here, but I'm doing this number, sometimes trying to see you and find your place and find what I'm reading. And so they're out in the water. I don't know how far out they are. They're out a ways, and they're fishing, and they can't tell who this is. There's some guy on the shore. And I got to get real with you for a minute. Maybe you've learned this about me, maybe you haven't. When I'm under stress, I'm in the middle of it. I'm kind of down under. And I'm in the middle of working, and I'm trying to just beat my way through it, press on, persevere. The last thing I'm looking for is to somebody, well-meaning as they may be, some people identify and come along and say, hey, what you doing? Really? Now you're going to come ask me, what am I doing? Even worse than just taking a general poll, you know? They ask a specific question about how successful I'm being at what I'm doing. Don't you love that? I don't, folks. And I can get really frustrated. So I'm listening to this as I'm reading it. I'm listening in my head and I'm identifying with Peter. It doesn't say how he responds in regards to his feelings. But I'm imagining what the guy's thinking. Oh, you gotta be kidding. Who's the guy on the what? We've been fishing all night and we hadn't caught anything. Somebody else want to talk to this guy? No, they replied. Yeah, I'm in touch with that. That's the safest answer. Cut to the chase, give an answer, done. Don't give an opportunity to let my feelings come out. Takes care of the problem, doesn't it? No, we just read that part. I don't know who this guy is, but he's rather persistent. Then he said, throw out your nets on the right-hand side of the boat. That's what I needed. I needed some advice. That's really what I want when I'm overwhelmed and frustrated and I've been working a long time. Right, Dre? Yeah, you're under it. Some of the rest of you get it. If I followed you around and I followed you at the end of the day, yeah. And I want to talk to you about it, and then I want to give you advice when your day hasn't gone so well. Throw out your net on the right-hand side of the boat, and you'll get some. It's probably right about the time that the emotional stops that Peter starts to think, that sounds familiar. So they do it, and the text doesn't tell me why they did it. It just says, so they did. They threw out their net. And then it says, and they couldn't haul in the net because there were so many fish in it. Now again, I imagine that if I'm Peter, boy, I'm getting some major flashbacks going on right now. I'm thinking, whoa, wait a minute. Oh, we've been here before. What's happening? Maybe I'm even making the connection now. Maybe the memory, maybe this story is connecting and I'm starting to have some different feelings. But the text doesn't tell me that. What it says is, verse 7, then the disciple Jesus loved said to Peter, it's the Lord. When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his tunic, his clothing, for he had stripped for work, jumped into the water, and headed to the shore. How do you think he's feeling? Well, let me ask you something. If you're in a dry boat and you're doing some work and you're getting ready to jump in the water, do you tend to put your clothes on? It's a clue to me that maybe the emotion is really getting to him. Maybe he's starting to remember. Maybe it's coming alive. Maybe he's getting really excited. Wait a minute. And I don't want to go meet him like this. I don't know why he threw on his clothes, but he did. He's intentional. He throws on his clothes, he jumps in the water, and he takes off for the shore. This I know. The memory has come flooding. Can I use that word? Sorry for the pun. The memory has come flooding into his memory. And now he's excited because he's remembering a story. He's remembering an event. He's remembering an experience that changed his life. I started off talking about connections, broken connections. Surely Peter was in touch with broken connections. Surely Peter, more than anybody else, had reason to be really, really excited and hopeful about his life coming forward. I was going to say the life to come, but When I say those, what do we think of? Heaven, right? The life to come. The next few days and weeks and months, I don't think Peter was thinking about heaven when Jesus first called him. He's thinking about, man, where is this headed? What is my life going to look like? And then all that stuff happened that really shattered him. As I was reading this, and again, just trying to imagine what it would be like to have been there, to have been one of these guys, I had all kinds of thoughts. Somewhere years ago, long time ago, decades ago in my life, I ran across a newspaper, and I couldn't find the article, although I have it. You know, we're still unpacking. But I've still got it. I cut out an article out of the newspaper. It was an ad, actually, and I can't tell you what it was even advertising. I remember what it was about, though. I'll never forget it. It had a picture of an urban neighborhood. It was a city street, houses kind of grayed out and fuzzed out in the background, you know. And there's some guys standing over there. I don't know, they look teenage, early 20s, I'm guessing. There's a school bus, I think, off in the distance. And there's a little boy, young kid, running down the road, running down the sidewalk. And he's in the front of the picture, in the foreground, you know. And these guys are in the background. And it quoted him something like this. You know, my teachers tell me, just say no to drugs. I hear that at home too, just say no to drugs. I turn on the television and I see commercials and they say, just say no to drugs. As a matter of fact, everywhere I turn, somebody says, just say no to drugs. But they don't live in my neighborhood. It probably doesn't hit you this morning just hearing me describe that, but it turned me inside out that day because I remember being a little boy and being intimidated. I remember being a little boy and having some pretty big dreams and hopes. I remember being a little boy and beginning to realize that some of those dreams and hopes weren't going to happen. I was a little boy that had lots. I didn't live in a neighborhood like that. But when I looked at that newspaper article of an ad, and I read those words, it hit me in a way that, as again, I already said, I'll never forget. Because it dawned on me, you know what? That's real. That's not just a story. That's real. That little boy has real hopes and dreams. Nowhere in that did he say he didn't want to do, that he wanted to do drugs. Nowhere in that did he say, hey, yeah, but you know, they don't know how much money I can make. He didn't say that. What he said was, if I can paraphrase, it's easy for you to say, you people who live off somewhere else, just say no, but you're not running by the guys that I run by every day when I get off the school bus. And they're big and they're scary. And I don't control like I'd like to. And it hit me. Man, I'd give a lot to make a difference in that kid's life. I mean, I'd give a lot. You know that part of you that just kind of goes beyond what's real? Maybe like when the boy is standing in front of the mirror with his shirt off after he's done, 10 or 15 or 30 push-ups, and he's flexing, and what he sees in the mirror doesn't look anything like him. That's the way I was feeling that day. Man, I was feeling big after I got through the emotion of it. I was thinking, I want to do something. I want to make a difference. It's wrong for this kid to be like that. It hurt deeply because I had every opportunity. And this little boy didn't. And this little boy represented, I'm sure, a lot of little boys. And I don't mean to be all sexist this morning. Little girls too, but the story was about a little boy. And I was a little boy. And it hit me really, really hard. Hopes and dreams, folks, make a difference. They can get you through some of the darkest days until somebody snatches it out of your hand. And until you realize that there's not a thing you can do about it. I can only imagine the way Peter must have felt. Because the hopes and dreams had to have been huge. And to see the one who had done so many amazing things and so many people he had helped and such an impact, such a difference he was making. Do you want to make a difference? Now that's a real question. Sorry. I'll come out from the teaching. Do you want to make a difference? Sure you do. I'm guessing whether you answered or not, every one of you would like to make a difference. I'm really not a whole lot of anybody, and I was even less when I was a shy teenager. But I gave a speech one time, and the whole premise of the speech was be determined to make a difference. Because everybody wants to make a difference. Man, if we could get out of this big group setting and I could talk with each of you individually, particularly some of you younger people. I bet if I could catch Jordan. I bet if I could get your kids. Well, G may be too young, but Haley, I bet. Not too young. Little kid. We want to make a difference. And I got to tell you, I cannot believe anything other than the fact that Peter wanted to make a difference. And he saw the hopes and dreams come alive in him of making a difference. And I think every one of us can identify with that desire. And I'm guessing, even though I wish it wasn't this case, I'm guessing that there's not a one of you in here that also can identify with what it feels like to have a hope and a dream snatched out from your hands and not be able to do a thing about it. Do you not have that experience? Anybody not identify? I've got a few extra minutes today. If you don't, raise your hand. I can meet with you after and tell you what it feels like. Snatched out of your hand. But how many of us get an opportunity to re-encounter the one who gave you those hopes and dreams? The one who maybe gave you more hopes and dreams than you even had on your own. How many of us get an opportunity to come back to a situation after all the junk in life has robbed us of those hopes and dreams? How many of us get an opportunity to come back to that situation and get it all over again? And what if it's not just an opportunity? What if it's somebody that actually you think has the real potential for bringing it about? Do you start to get excited? Do you start maybe to get hopeful? Well, maybe you haven't had that experience. I'm willing to acknowledge that maybe some of us haven't had that experience. Well, I've got some news for you. And I hope it's good news. If you've got hopes and dreams today, and I've been encouraging you to hope and dream again, if you've got hopes and dreams that you had a long time ago that for whatever reason kind of got squelched or squashed or snuffed out, the good news is this: there is somebody who you can realize new hopes and dreams. There is somebody who can help you hear from long ago what you so wanted to come about. And he can help bring that about. Now, I don't mean to say any dream, you know that. But the good dreams, the want to make a difference dreams, the want to help somebody dreams, the want to bring somebody something they've not had dreams, the real, deep, honest, sincere, genuine, not because I'm preaching, just because I'm talking to you today, dream that I might actually be able to step into the life of a little boy somewhere who some big kid said, "No way," and make a difference. That I might be able to marshal up the resources around to protect that kid. To say, "No, I'm going to do everything I can to help you realize those dreams. You are going to get a shot at life. Not the life they're wanting to put on you, but a real good life." It isn't just that little boy. There's a whole lot of little boys. And man, they still got hopes and dreams, some of them. Some of them haven't encountered those big bullies. Some of them have still vibrant, real, hopeful dreams. Wouldn't it be wonderful to give them an opportunity to get that? "Yeah, Pastor, but it'd be really nice if we could go to lunch." That was unfair. That wasn't kind. I don't mean to say you're all thinking that. I couldn't think of something else to say right at the moment. "I don't know. We're looking for something else, Pastor. Sure, it's a great story. Wonder where you're headed with this." Okay, so what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to protect people? Supposed to read more? We're supposed to get more serious about our desires and hopes and dreams? What's the point here, Pastor? That's fair. That's a fair question. After I had boiled, I don't know how many pots of water this week, I had a real dream and desire. It wasn't long term, it was short term. Oh, Lord, I know this is really selfish. Forgive me for this. But man, if we could just have that water again and it'd be safe to drink and I wouldn't have to keep boiling water, that'd be awesome. Anybody have that thought besides me? What would make that possible? I mean, real life. We just went through it. What would bring about the reality that I didn't have to keep boiling water? Anybody? It's not a hard question. Fix it, right? Fix what? The broken pipe. Some of you are way ahead of me. Yeah, I know. We have to fix the broken connection. Here's the deal. We are called Church 180 for a reason. Because our purpose, our focus, matter of fact, everything we ought to be about is helping people who have maybe lost their dream or hope. Maybe you have gone down a road they wish they weren't down. Maybe you're looking for a different way of living than what they're currently living. And help them make a 180. Help them get back onto a road they want to be on. Help them to find a life that's worth living. Help them to find hopes and dreams again. Except there's a problem. We're some pretty good people. Maybe not all of us. No, we're all good people. We're all decent people. Some of us are really good, and when we get together, 3 or 4 or 5 of us, we can do a lot of good things, right? I'm not sure that even all of us together can fix the situation where there's no more little boys in that situation. but I know who can. And when you add Him to the equation, when you add Him and a connection to Him, then the same group of us who couldn't do it on our own can now do it, one at a time. Would you like that opportunity? Some of us more than others. Some of us are so overwhelmed. Some of us are so stuck in places. Some of us can't even imagine right now. I'm good with that. I get it. I'm going to begin to try to help you dream again. I'm going to, not today, but I'm going to begin to help you, I hope, hope again. Not just for yourself, but for those little boys and those little girls. Because they're coming. And oh, what it would do in the life of one of them if we could give them the connection that will help bring this about. There was a simple act. There was a simple statement that meant nothing without a prior connection. But with the connection that had been made, Peter gained new hope. Peter gained new vision. Peter came alive again. We have the opportunity for so many Peters because we know the one who can do this. Oh, I hope that you hear this morning. Oh, I hope that whatever you do for a living, whatever you do throughout your week, I hope that you'll look this coming week and ask yourself, is there somebody here who's lost hope? Is there somebody here who they really don't dream anymore? Is there somebody here who I could make a difference in their life by letting them know the hopes and dreams that I have because of a connection that I have? Maybe that requires you to ask another question. Maybe that requires you to wrestle with something in your mind. Do I have that connection strong enough that it makes me or puts me in a position to offer? If not, good news. The same good news for them is for you. Come to Him. Come back to Him. Ask Him to do in your life what He did in Peter's life. Step right back in and reawaken those hopes and dreams birthed by the one who creates good hopes and dreams. And if you do, if you know, if you already have it, then I pray with all my might that this coming week something in you will be awakened. Something in you will go off when you see someone else who's not been. And you'll begin to pray for an opportunity to give them hope. Lord, how grateful I am. How grateful I am, Lord, that you have given us an opportunity to be